What up, y'all? What up, y'all? Let me tell y'all, yesterday morning I was in the gym, and shout out to Miss Emily, man, this lady that I've seen in the gym for a few years, but I never actually officially met her, you feel me? I was doing dumbbell press, had a 75 in my left hand, a 75 in my right hand, and I was doing dumbbell press, incline, slight incline, right? And I was on my last set, and I was pushing myself. I told myself I was only gonna get 10, you feel me? Man, around 5, I got a little tired. I was like, dang, like, I'm only gonna get 7 for real. And then she came over and she started to spot me. You know, she gave me like a very faint touch on both my elbows. And it was like a good guide for me to continue, you know. And I got that 10. And then, you know, she helped me, you know, and I ain't even met her. Like, we just got made eye contact and smiled at each other. You know, this somebody mama, you feel me? And then that was a good interaction, you feel me? And this had me thinking, like, what made her feel safe enough to come over and do that to me, you know? Random older white lady, I'm a random black dude, right? I must be really approachable. And I understand that I'm approachable, you know, but yeah, it just one of them things that it made me sit back and think. And then later on, she came up to me in the gym and she told me, she was like, yeah, like I used to work out with this guy. Like she talked to me like she know me. She said she used to work out with this man and he like taught her how to spot people. And I was like, yeah, like because you didn't really help me. You didn't do the workout for me, but you was a great guide. And she was like, exactly. And I was like, exactly. You feel me? We had a great interaction and she told me her name. She introduced me to the young man that she was working out with. I assumed there was a son, but she told me that was her grandson. And I was like, well, dang, Emily, you look great. And she was like, yeah, I'm 65. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, she really did look good. And, you know, I was talking to her, but it had me thinking, like, man, like, you get out what you put in. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't necessarily try, but I just be living my life like, you feel me? Like I basically be living my life like it's golden. Like I just do what feels right to me. You know, I don't stray away from doing kind things, but I also have moments of, you know, selfishness, you know, not to where I'm like putting others at a disadvantage, but you know, there are times I just have to prioritize looking out for yourself, right? But overall, you know, I put out good energy to the world. I'm not rude to people. I'm not mean to people, you know, and it comes back to you, you know. You have interactions around people who just want to be around you. You feel me? God recognizes so much work that I had put in with my life, you know, with kicking weed, kicking the cup, you know, kicking porn, uh, kicking dirty websites, kicking sexual perversion, you know, adultery, you know, with the flesh. And, you know, I've I've gotten those I've gotten blessings in return of that. You know, sometimes I wonder like, dang, like God really be looking out for me. Like something may not make sense right now, but later on when it all pans out, you be like, okay, that's why that didn't work out earlier because it was supposed to fit in this time space. You know, it wasn't meant then, but it was meant now. That's why it didn't work then. That's why I didn't feel validated then. That's why I didn't feel that successful then because I was built to feel even more successful when I put more work in later, you know? So it's just having that faith and trust, you know, having faith in the Lord. Because all this is faith for real, you know, at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? And we have to continue to increase it, you know? People will come into your life, God will place people, God will orbit people into your life to reassure you of where you're going, where you need to go, reassure you if you're going in the wrong direction, the right direction, you know. But you may not understand what God's doing. You may not understand why you met that person, but that person taught you a lesson of what to do and also what not to do. You know, there's mistakes that I've made. I wouldn't necessarily say mistakes, but I've burned myself throughout relationships due to my ignorance, my negligence, my weakness, right? And a lot of times we regret certain things, but you can't look at it like regret. It's just God telling you, like, yeah, you had to do this, so you know not to do it ever again. You know, I've done things with women that I'll just simply never do again. You know, like it's just the way it is. Like being in control of your frame. You know, and these are all just lessons that you learn from having growing pains. You learn from your mistakes. You learn from being humbled. You know, and I've been humbled a lot. You know, I feel like I've been humbled too since the beginning. And whenever I tried to move with a certain type of arrogance, I've always gotten knocked down. You know, that's why I know I'm not meant to just do what others do. Simple as that. You know. And if you come across this video, it's imperative that you look at life through that lens. And shout out to Miss Emily. You know, shout out to Mr. Ken from yesterday. He told me I was young, handsome, and successful. Like young, handsome, and successful. That's like such a big up, you know, from an elder, you know. A lot of people wish they had my youth, you know, so I'm just appreciating, you know, these times the best way I can, you know, even though things may not look the way I want them to look, you know. I'm just trying to remain gracious for where I'm at, you know, because there's somebody else who may want to be where I'm at while I'm over here looking on somebody else's plate. So look at your own plate, eat your food, you feel me? And remain gracious, for sure.